The forces of Colombia, they are rebels. They have been fighting during last 52 years. They finally agreed to a peace agreement to usher in an end to 50-year-old civil war. People cheered with happiness. They cried tears of relief. They laid down their arms, with which they have been killing so many people during the last 50 years. That was another reminder. I've been working during the last 9 years and 6 months. That was the most successful and most moving peace work United Nations has been working with the parties concerned, including Colombia. I met the commander of this FARC. I have a half an hour meeting with him. That was unusual that the Secretary General would be meeting a rebel force commander. He was committed while laying down all the arms, and all these weapons will be melted and will be made a good symbolic tribute to the peace. Maybe they may be displayed in Colombia and at the United Nations. That was another reminder that despite the turmoil in today's world, we can find the common ground. Ladies and gentlemen, as for the vote in the United Kingdom yesterday and the result known today, I have never been more convinced that when we work together, we are stronger. That's the key to a better world, and is in our hands. I'm here today to talk about just that, building a better, more sustainable world together. And I'm here to ask for your help. This is a gun, so I have come with a pitch. I know all of you have tremendous power to shape opinions. You are master storytellers. And I want you to help us to create the biggest campaign ever for humanity. What do I mean? As Ms. Badawi said last September, all the leaders of 193 member states of the United Nations came to the United Nations and adopted 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with 17 Sustainable Development Goals. These are the most ambitious and far-reaching visions and blueprints to make this world much better and leaving no one behind. It is quite simply the biggest anti-poverty, pro-planet action ever adopted by the United Nations. That means if we implement by 2030 all these 17 goals, then all 7 billion people and this planet Earth will be put forward toward sustainable, environmentally and sustainable future where nobody will be left behind. And it is an agenda for everyone, everywhere. If I had to give it a tagline, it is this: we are the first generation that can end global poverty, and we are the last generation that can address climate change before it is too late, before we may have to regret. I know all of you can help the world make these ambitious goals a reality. Here are 3 reasons why. The first, none of the SDGs can be achieved by anyone else or any government, any organization. However one nation may be powerful and resourceful, however one may be very talented, nobody, no country can do it alone. That means we need the business community We need civil society. We need academia. We need the private sector. We need everyone, including yourselves. And everyone has a stake in its success. It means everyone's hand must be on deck. Corporate social responsibility, known as a CSR, is important, but we need to go further. Sometimes CSR is seen as a feel-good, optional approach. The SDGs touch every aspect of our life, your business, and of your client's reality. They echo what consumers demand, and they reflect what shareholders want, and they will instill pride in your employees. We need your help to make sure the SDGs are the business of all business, and SDGs are the business of all the people. Second, that leads me to my second point. The SDGs are the people's goals. They are the result of broad-based consultations around the world. When we initiated this one, we reached out through UN communication system, web system, at least 8 million people, covering all spectrums of people. We asked, what kind of a world do you want? Please reply us. We have received millions of replies from young people, women, and vulnerable group of people, business and government leaders. And we compiled and we negotiated and analyzed and negotiated among member states for 2 years at least. That's the result of these 17 SDG goals. We particularly asked young people, and we also asked our women. You have some of the greatest young talents in your ranks, as we saw in this week's Young Lions competition. We must also recognize the goals will not be achieved unless everyone working for them sees the agenda through the eyes, minds, and hearts of women. We have to use most unutilized talent and potentiality of women. Half the sky is women, and mostly their talents and potential have not been fully utilized. If we use all the women on board, we can double the productivity of our world. Third, we need you to help us find the best ways to tell the story. Not all people know what are the SDGs, what are the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Now I'm asking you to use all your creativity, ingenuity, innovation, and power of persuasion. You are the people whose innovation and creativity are second to none. Help us transform a complex and abstract agenda into a personal, emotional, and concrete, workable solutions. And make your own story. This challenge is not the favor for a charity or one-off campaign or fundraising for a non-profit. My call to you today is to be a part of something bigger. It requires a serious 15-year-long partnership for humanity with the United Nations and among United Nations, government, civil society, business communities, philanthropists. There is perhaps no brand with a more important purpose in the world than the SDG ring. You know, Olympic rings with the 5 rings. They stand for highest standard in sports. This SDG rings stands for the highest standards in social commitment, human well-being, and global solidarity. In the short term, we want the 2030 Agenda to be known by 2 billion people. We want to mobilize at least 1 million people as change agents. You are part of this 1 million people. Help us reach far and wide. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no limit to the power of people to make a difference when they join forces for the global good. That isn't just wishful thinking. It's my life. As you know, I'm coming from Korea. Young people know Korea as the home of Samsung, K-pop, or Gangnam Style. But the world, the Korea when I was living, was quite different. I grew up in a different Korea that was totally ravaged by the Korean War in 1950. I was 6 years old. My family and I had to flee into safer mountainside, as many Syrian refugees are coming to European countries. I watched my village burn down behind us. We came back after the war. We came back to rubble. There were no homes, no schools, no hospitals, even the limited infrastructures were all destroyed. I studied under the shade of trees because there were no classrooms. There was no textbooks. United Nations came immediately after this war broke out. They provided us with the textbooks, food, clothes, and security. The UN flag was our beacon of hope. UN was lifeline. I learned that solidarity means the difference between despair and hope. That these days, whenever I travel around the world, whenever I was meeting refugees and migrants and sick people and oppressed people, I used to tell them always, just do not despair. United Nations will be with you as UN was with me 65 years ago. Compassion requires reaching across boundaries. I have tried to do this as the Secretary General of the United Nations. For example, when I was growing up, no one talked about discrimination based on sexual orientation. But I learned to speak out because lives are at stake. Now I proudly wave rainbow ring flag. We have to transcend differences for the greater good. A big part of advertising and business is defining your competitor and battling them. But it is equally about finding your partners and working with them. We have some ultra competitors. We need to be together. Poverty, injustice, and inequality. And I'm proud to say that today, the communications industry is taking a historic, first of its kind step to do just that. It began with a challenge laid down at last year's Cannes debate by Sir Martin Sorrell. He said, I quote, "Can we in our industry put aside our differences to work together to address biggest challenges facing our planet and humanity?" 1 year later, the 6 biggest communications businesses in the world have risen to what some may have said was an impossible test. It is called Common Ground, and it has been developed by Dentsu, Havas, IPG, Omnicom, Publicis, and WPP. Together, they have agreed to put their differences aside in support of a joint, unique, and exciting initiative to advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It is both an example and challenge to all of us to find our common ground for the common good. To tell you more about it, I would like to welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Yannick Bolloré, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Havas, Mr. Michael Roth, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of IPG, Mr. John Wren, President and Chief Executive Officer of Omnicom, Mr. Maurice Lévy, Chairman and CEO of Publicis Groupe, and Sir Martin Sorrell, Founder and CEO of WPP. I thank you for your commitment and engagement and attention. Ladies and gentlemen, let's work together to make this world better for all, where all the people can live with human dignity. That's a strong commitment and vision of this SDGs 2030. By 2030, I make sure that everybody will be much, much happier, more prosperous. This planet Earth will be environmentally sustainable with the climate change addressed. I thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Secretary General, thank you very much indeed for getting us off to such a rousing start. We salute your passion, commitment and ambitions for these very important goals. And just very quickly, before I turn to the CEO, Secretary General, you've obviously got the titans of the marketing, advertising and communications industry globally with you here. So just perhaps tell us a little bit more how you feel that the communications industry, particularly in the business sector, can help in promoting the SDGs. How can these gentlemen and their female colleagues as well in their organisations help, communicate globally the SDGs, promote them?
Thank you. Again, I have a lot to tell, but time was very much limited, so this is a good opportunity. I'm extremely honored to sit with the czars of communication world. It's rare, however, my job is important. I meet all different group of people, starting from some famous Hollywood actors, actresses, and president or prime ministers and ministers. They are usually some customers, but never in the past. I'm sitting with you. The main purpose of my coming here is to make some plainly clear that SDG is for your SDGs. And among yourselves, if we can use talent and innovation, innovative and creativity power of these big gentlemen, then I think we can make it much, much faster. It's important that when leaders have adopted this vision, it should be translated into action. This is the first year. Then this SDGs, which have been negotiated, and it's a little bit complicated for just the common citizens to understand. So I'd like to make you a nice story, which will be easily understood by all the people, starting from elementary school children to highest senior officials or government and business communities. You have the resources. I have appointed some advocates, global advocates for sustainable development goals, including some royalties. Her Majesties of Denmark and Brussels, Belgium, and there are many prime ministers and ministers. But now I'd like to ask you to play as a global advocate and the great master storytellers. It's a complicated 17 goals. We have 169 targets, but they are sometimes very specific and very technical, very scientific. So please make these stories easier to understand for all the people. And you should know that I'm not asking you for any charity, any unconditional support, because it involves your business too. It involves your business. Normally, this should be done by the government. That's the normal perception, but it has very serious implications and work to do with the business communities and even civil society and just the private citizens. So you can be all part of this very important process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary General. So, gentlemen, you've got your marching orders now from the Secretary General. You are the master storytellers, but we don't want you spinning any yarns. We want you to make sure that all your campaigns are anchored in fact. I'm going to come to you in a moment, but first of all, unfortunately, the CEO of Dentsu, Tadashi Ishii, could not be with us, but he is very much part of this Common Ground initiative, and he has sent us a video setting out why this agenda is so important to Dentsu, and their particular focus, really broadly speaking, is on the health SDGs. So if the technical team would be so kind as to play the video, please, from Dentsu, Tadashi Ishii.
Greetings, I am Tadashi Ishii, President and CEO of the Dentsu Group. I would like to sincerely thank Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for providing us with this wonderful opportunity. There are at least two certainties in the world we live in. The first that comes to mind is that we face an overwhelming number of issues. In a perfect world, UN's Sustainable Development Goals would already have become a reality. Unfortunately, we are faced with the undeniable truth that realizing these targets will be far from easy. The second certainty, however, is that our world is filled with boundless potential that exists inside each person upon this planet. Without a doubt, one of the greatest expressions of humanity's limitless potential is our creativity. Those of us in the advertising industry are generally friends and rivals. The opportunity provided by the Secretary General gives us a chance to join hands to realize new possibility through creativity. I regret not being able to join you in person today. However, as a representative of the Dentsu Group, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for this meaningful opportunity. We pledge our total cooperation in working together to achieve the goals of the initiative. I look forward to helping build a brighter future. Thank you.
Tadashi Ishii, the CEO of Dentsu Group, pledging his commitment to this. Yannick from Havas, you are CEO and Chairman of Havas. You've been in that position since 2013. And, you know, listening to what the Secretary General was saying about how it's important for the private sector as one of the key stakeholders in this whole debate to pull their weight, you can kind of understand how that might include, you know, the manufacturing industry globally, energy companies and so on, when it comes to combating climate change, which is the SDG that Havas have decided to focus on. So really the question is, how can a communications company such as yours really help in fighting climate change?
Thank you. It's a difficult question. First, I want to extend my greetings and thank you very much, Mr. General Secretary, to gather all of us. I think it's a privilege to have this gathering where we can, for 1 hour, put our differences aside. I get that the planet deserves it. Climate change is a big issue we all agree on, and we won't be given another chance to fix this issue. As the CEO of Havas, I am personally very committed to climate change, as my family group has invested billions in trying to producing batteries that are storing energy, clean energy, and producing electric cars and other different things. We have been one of the key stakeholders in many climate conferences alongside most of my peers. But I think that communication groups, we don't have any magic ones. We are not smarter than all the smart people that are trying to fix the issue of climate change. But maybe something that communications people like us can do is being able to influence the conversations. And I think we need to influence the conversation because when it comes to talk about climate change, most of the people, they don't feel responsible for that. It's something abstract, and they believe that it's most of all the matters and the concerns of the governments. But I do believe that we hire stellar talents in communication groups. We have seen here in Cannes Lions, the best content creators of the world are working here. And doing a creative message could help making the people believing that this issue could become something personal and not something that belongs to governments. The other thing that we can do is I do believe that we have very strong media people, or people they know how to deliver a meaningful message, meaning to deliver the right message to the right people, to the right group of people at the right time of the day, on the right devices. And by combining our efforts in creative and media all together, I'm sure that we can create much more meaningful messages that will help people shift and understand that even if we're living in a time of big turmoils, we are all shocked by what happened this night in Europe. I think this is something that we all need to do. And last but not least, I think this gathering is very inspiring to me because our industry, as you know, is by far one of the most competitive industry. Basically, I don't want to say we all dislike each other, but we are all competing. Yeah, but no, this is a true fact. So I think that if the advertising industry, which is fierce competition, can gather together for this common ground, I'm sure it can inspire other industry and other rivals of the world. So thank you very much, Mr. General Secretary, for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Yannick. Let me go to your left to Michael Roth from IPG. You know, Michael, as somebody who's worked in the media really for several decades, I started very early. I travel all over the world and I see that, you know, very much a key issue is access to water. And we know that the statistics are very, very alarming. You know, 663 million people, according to the United Nations, don't have access to water, and 1.8 billion have access to water that's contaminated in the most awful way, and it has to be seen to be believed just how contaminated this water is that people actually use, and of course it spreads all manner of diseases. So why at IPG have you chosen to focus on water as the sustainable development goal that you really want to promote? I mean, I know you're involved across the board, but why water? And then, you know, given that you work in the creative industries, do you believe that you can kind of also help bring creative solutions to the water problems that we face globally?
Well, thank you. Those aren't the questions you were supposed to ask me. No, I'm just kidding.
We're making it up as we go along, but I'm sure it's...
First of all, it really is a privilege to be here. And Mr. Secretary General, IPG, in 2015, we signed on to the UN Global Compact, and we're committed to continuing that. And what we're talking about today in terms of the SDGs is consistent with our intentions in terms of the greater good and the common ground that we can impact. You know, the consumers today, you know, we're in the communication business, as you said, and we do storytelling. And the consumers today are expecting action with respect to social issues. And they're expecting the private sector to really have an impact. In fact, they're demanding the private sector. And if you look at the resources just sitting on this stage, We have tremendous resources that can address these issues. And if, as Yannick said, we put our differences apart and aside, and you know, not just to sit on a stage today and show a unified support, we intend to continue this and work together on solving an important goal. And really, that's what this is all about. And as you say, our specific SDG has to do with clean water, and we're in the midst of a global water crisis, just as you said. And this is due to the population growth and its development, and there's just not enough sufficient clean sanitary water globally. And this affects every family that's affected by this, and it leads to political and economic unrest and instability. 1 out of every 5 deaths under the age of 5 worldwide is due to a water-related disease. As much as 80% in the developing countries of illnesses are linked to poor water and sanitation issues.
Another Prime Minister.
So water and sanitation really spans all the issues that we're talking about here. And we're excited about addressing this issue because I think together we really have the capabilities to make a difference in this very important area. And in fact, you question how can we do this? We already have clients like Nestle, Royal Caribbean, Coca-Cola, and of course Unilever is doing groundbreaking work on this in India, where we partnered with them on promoting hand washing for new moms, and it's helped save many lives. And in Peru, with FCB, we developed an outdoor billboard that converted the humidity in the air to drinking water, and people were lining up to get that drinking water. So our commitment today, representing our 50,000 employees, is to use the creative talent that we have, together with everyone on this stage, and really put together a solution and a communicative response to what's happening in the world. And you know, we just don't generate social media buzz. We actually impact what's happening in the world today, and we have the ability to do that. So for IPG's commitment today, what we're going to do, obviously, is coordinate and work together and put our differences aside. But we're also going to increase the pro bono work that we're doing in these areas. We're also going to focus our volunteer time in our entire organization on these issues. And frankly, we're also going to continue to engage our clients with respect to all of these issues. And working together with the organizations on this stage, I think we can put together solutions that really will have an impact and make this world a better place, as you so much challenged us to do in the future. So I thank you for the challenge. I welcome the opportunity on behalf of all of IPG. And you're a good guy, Yannick. I'm always friends with you. Okay. You too, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael. Thank you. So, John Wren, President and CEO of Omnicom. You know, when it comes to talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, there's been a great deal of debate, of course, about how you have to really look at all the SDGs in the round. You can't just try to, you know, tackle one particular SDG and look at it in a silo. You have to try and really help, you know, lift people out of poverty across all sectors, you know, be it health, education, access to food and so on. You can't look at it in isolation. And I know that at Omnicom you have focused very much on the SDG on education, but you believe that education really is something that connects all the SDGs together. So perhaps you could tell us more about why you think that's so important and what Omnicom is going to do to meet the commitments on education, not just this year, but also in the years to come. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, it is a great honor to be on the same stage as you, Secretary General, and to have you here in Cannes. And I really have to applaud you for getting 193 countries to come together and to sign on to this effort. So we're just a small representation. We selected education because we really do believe that it's key and fundamental to each one of the individual efforts that my colleagues on the stage are engaged in. To be fair, if you were to examine each one of us, our people, our most creative, most talented people, are dedicated and give their time every year, give their efforts every year in some part to an element in one of the standards that the goals that we're trying to achieve. I think the objective of education, what we're going to ultimately try to do, is to create a powerful brand using whatever commitments, whatever efforts that each one of our competitive companies are already contributing, and the young people, the talent in our industry already has. We have the greatest storytellers in the world. We should be able to easily accomplish over time that education. That education that not only affects consumers, but also governments and decisions and the efforts that decisions they try to make. You've already given us, and we have to figure out how we're going to expand it, a great icon to work with, the wheel, which was already presented to us, and I think we can use that as a foundation to start to develop some other efforts, and Omnicom is clearly committed to doing that. Now, education has always been at the core of Omnicom since the beginning of it, and because we're all competing all the time to get the best talent. And I'm not sure about the clients Michael thinks he came in with. He actually leaves the class. He leaves but I think education, and the reason we wanted it, is it covers healthcare, it covers water, it covers each one of the objectives and goals that you've laid out and laid the framework and put the challenge to the world that we need for the children of the young people that are out here to grow up in a safer, cleaner, more protected environment in the world where women have, rights, equality, whether it's healthcare, whether it's clean water to drink, all of those issues. So we're committed to trying to tie together, and I guess an ask is if I could make of my colleagues who already invest a good deal of time and money, and we'll do more, that maybe if we could start to use that icon that we already have to put it out there on each one of our efforts that we're already doing, it would be a great start. And from there, I think an education process will blossom, and we will put our brains and our very smart people behind trying to take it to the next level. But it's a great honor to be here. It's a great honor to be asked to participate in this. And I know that the employees of Omnicom around the world are excited about the opportunity to make their part of the contribution, really stand for something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you for reminding us, John, that when we talk about education, that we have to talk about inclusive education, and the fact that globally it's so often the girl child who gets left behind, and quality education is very, very important. Thank you. Maurice Lévy from Publicis Groupe. So, when it comes to talking about sustainable development goals and climate change in particular and so on, people talk about climate change, the need to tackle it, and energy and so on, but a lot of people now are beginning to talk more and more about food as being a very important component of the sustainable development goals, not just, in terms of production, but also consumption, particularly in the more affluent parts of the world, no food waste and so on, of course, as well as tackling hunger in parts of the world where we know hundreds of millions of people don't have adequate nutrition. So why at Publicis do you feel that the Sustainable Development Goal agendas are very important? You say you've been committed to them for a long time, and why have you chosen to focus on food, apart from the fact that you're French, of course, and we know that you have fantastic food in France, as I've had here in Cannes, but anyway.
Unfortunately, it's not because we are French that we have decided to work on food. It's because we are open to work on any kind of issue, any kind of problem linked to sustainable development and climate change. So we decided that we will let, as we are on common ground and the SG has been able to have peace talks between rivals, we have decided that we will take whatever is left of the table, and it was food. And unfortunately, very often, food is left on the table. I'd like to come back to the reason why we have started to invest and really be serious about sustainable development and climate change. At the beginning, at the end of the 90s, when we started to think about it, we considered that we were not one of the polluting companies in the world. We were not on chemicals, we were not working on oil, we were not creating any big issue on earth. And in fact, there was no direct reason for being involved. The reality that when we look around and say, okay, we can be selfish and say, okay, as we are not contributing to the waste, to the issues, to the problems, we are not going to help solving it. And we decided, and we have been the first communication company to sign the Global Compact in 2003, and also the first French company to do it. We have decided that we will be extremely serious about that, and we will focus and be very clear on everything that we can do on helping to solve in any given way. And food is, by the way, what is needed for people to live. And when you look at what's happening on Earth, there is more than 1 billion people on Earth who are not fed sufficiently. They have not enough food to be simply alive. And on the other hand, in the Western world, in the rich world, you have 40% of the food which is wasted. And there is this sophistication of how to cook, how to eat, etc., where you spend a lot of kilometers to bring food from one place on Earth to another one with all the consequences. So we thought that there is maybe another approach to food, and that we will try to help diminishing the waste, eating closer to where the food is produced, and being clever, more clever in sharing. And we are always speaking that we are in a sharing economy. In fact, it's wrong. We are in sharing communication economy. The sharing economy is when you take what you have and you share it. And we believe that there is something that can be done in order that we can share with the people who have nothing, and that we can help these people who have so little to have at least something which will help them to be fed, in order that they can get educated, in order that they can help in the climate change. Maybe we will avoid the issue of refugees, etc. So I personally consider that it's a fantastic undertaking. We are extremely proud and very happy to participate. I thank you, Secretary General, for spending time with us and coming from Cuba for this. I listened to your speech, and I think it's one of the most inspiring that I have heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Maurice. So, Sir Martin Sorrell, CEO and founder of WPP, we heard the Secretary-General in his keynote speech talking about the importance of the private sector, in this particular instance the communications industry, of engaging in this sustainable development agenda, you know, out of enlightened self-interest and bringing together, you know, as he said, competitors, to act for a higher good, for the common good, at the behest of the consumer globally and also your shareholders. So really, just perhaps in your comments, set out to us what common ground means to WPP.
Well, first I should thank you, Zaina, as well, because you probably, as a result of last night's event, or today's events, probably had other things that you could be doing. So a big thank you for taking time out to do this. And of course to the Secretary-General, after his yet another achievement in bringing conflict to a close after an extremely long period of time, at 50 years of that conflict in Colombia. So congratulations again to the Secretary-General for his efforts on behalf of world peace. Now let me just turn to common ground, going back to the question you asked me, Zaina. So common ground came out of a Cannes debate, which usually takes place here in Cannes at midday, at the end of, or towards the end of the Cannes Festival, and a conversation with Al Gore purely on climate change. That's what we were talking about last year. At the end of that interview with Al Gore, I asked him whether he would issue a challenge to our industry as a whole to embrace the issue that he was focused on of climate change. And the Secretary-General, as you all know, and as has been referred to before by John, secured the agreement of almost 200 countries to a 17 sustainable development goals that actually embrace climate change at its heart. I think there are 13 of the 17 climate goals of the sustainable development goals that have climate at their core and their roots. So what we did was we engaged with the Secretary-General and engaged with my colleagues in the industry to see whether we could put together a joint initiative, and I'm delighted, and we're all honoured to be here and all committed as a result to ensuring, as best as we can, that these sustainable development goals are implemented. And there's a warning sign already. The COP21 conference that secured agreement specifically in relation to climate change already appears to run into some difficulties, probably related to finance in terms of implementation. So the need to implement all these things that we're talking about, whether it be climate change, whether it be water, whether it be education, whether it be food, or the cause that we've embraced, which is gender diversity, which obviously is something that looms large, not just generally, but specifically in our industry. There are good things that happen in our industry in relation to gender diversity, but there are also are bad things. So making sure that we do something about that is pretty important. And as a result of the agreement of my colleagues to this program, we're each embracing one of these causes, and we will each, this is not where it begins and ends. This is a program that has legs, that in each of the areas that we're embracing, we will be implementing specific programs. There's already been an initiative with the Young Lions. We're going to go to a lunch, I think, with the Young Lions. They've embraced 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals so far. I think there will be another 2, and there's a competition around the best work surrounding these 7 Sustainable